All right, let's talk about CrowdStrike. I'm thinking of the title I want to give it, and I think I'm just going to call it the worst rookie mistake ever. So let's talk about some few things about CrowdStrike. All right. So hello guys, and welcome to this video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the CrowdStrike issue that happened last week that impacted companies globally, worldwide. So let me summarize the issue just in case you don't know what happened. So the issue was that CrowdStrike, right? Well, let me step back. CrowdStrike, what is CrowdStrike? Let's start with what CrowdStrike is. So CrowdStrike provides cybersecurity services to different companies, and the issue for last that happened last week was very specific to one of their tools. I think it's called Falcon, and it's an endpoint tool. So I want you to think about it this way. Actually, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me describe the issue and then I'll do the teaching on what happened. So let's talk about the issue. The issue was that CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity company that provides endpoint services to customers, issued an update last Friday that pretty much broke Windows systems. So systems that were running on the Windows operating systems, the update that they sent out didn't quite work well with it. And so globally, you had hospitals, airports, organizations could literally do nothing because they were getting what's known as the blue screen of death, which means your computer is down and there's nothing you can do. So what caused this? How did this happen? Let me talk about that with you guys. So one of the tools, right? CrowdStrike has multiple services they provide, but one of their services using their Falcon tool is endpoint services. So I want you to think of it like an antivirus. So how many of you have antivirus on your computers? Right? So think of it as an antivirus, right? If you have Norton or McAfee or whatever on your computer, the way it works is once you've installed it, it does automatic updates, meaning that whenever there are new vulnerabilities out there that your antivirus company has detected, they will automatically update the tool and it gets pushed to your computer so your computer is protected immediately. Most companies, when they implement updates, which let's call them patches, right? Most companies, when they implement patches, do testing before they implement them. So if it's just a regular patch from a regular company, before the customer implements it, they usually do testing. But the unique issue with the endpoint services is the customer is relying on the cybersecurity firm to actually do the testing for them because they don't want to lose time testing. They want to be immediately protected. Do you guys understand that? So because of the way the endpoint services work, a lot of customers don't do any additional testing before it's implemented. They expect the cybersecurity company, in this case CrowdStrike, to do the testing and only send adequately tested code and updates so that their systems don't break. So the issue here is that CrowdStrike apparently, right, or allegedly, didn't test that change before it went into production. So it only impacted Windows systems. It didn't impact Mac or Linux or Unix systems. So it means at some point, somebody decided not to test Windows. And because they decided not to test Windows, they did not realize the potential issue, which ended up being a real issue. And so they pushed that update out. And now all the systems were impacted. And the problem is when it was part of the boot sequence, so meaning when the computer is starting up. So whenever companies were trying to fix it, they couldn't just reboot the server. They had to go through another method, like through the safe mode, in order to delete the update that was, bad, and then install the correct update. So it's very critical to note that something as simple as testing changes or not testing changes can have the kind of global impact that it did. Right. So when I heard about the issue on Friday, one of my students, we have a private community, said, "Can you imagine this? This is something we learned in class." Because that's one of the things that you learn about change management. Right. Let's talk about how can this be prevented. One of the key controls For any security, when you're doing any cybersecurity testing, one of the key controls that should be implemented and that we test is that changes are properly tested, validated, and approved before going into production. And it's very, very clear that they did not do that in this case. Because if anybody took the time to test that update against the Windows system, they would have easily seen that it didn't work. So that means that control that requires companies to test, validate, and approve changes before moving it into production did not happen. Somebody didn't do their job, right? And presumably, I'm sure maybe they got fired already. So it's easy to understand that what you do as cybersecurity professionals is very, very important. Okay, so let me talk about some learning points for cybersecurity professionals. One, you don't want, if you're thinking of going into the field or you're in the field already, this is one of those things where you see the importance of proper training. There might be people out there that say, oh, just get in the field or whatever. But the reality is you need to know what you're doing. That's why you need to have proper training and proper processes in the company that you're working for. Somebody at that company should have raised their hand and said, we are not putting this in production without testing. Right? So that's the value of the knowledge that you can gain, that you can take into wherever you work in the cybersecurity field. So as a cybersecurity professional, I want you to understand that this underscores the importance of proper, adequate training and knowledge, and honestly, also the ability to speak up. Because maybe there was someone that knew they shouldn't do it and they didn't speak up. So you should have the right knowledge and be able to speak up in situations like this. Because now I'm sure whoever that was wish they spoke up to avoid this catastrophe that happened last week, right? And another thing is, you don't want to always be in a hurry. I'm not sure if this is correct because I haven't validated it, but I think someone said that they were trying to quickly get the updates out. Guys, quick is not always the right answer, right? We don't want to always have that fast food mentality of doing stuff quickly. So if it's true that because they were trying to quickly get results out there and they chose not to test, well, guess what? It didn't work. There's a saying, that my mom used to say when I was young. She was saying, like, if you're too lazy to do it right the first time, you try to do it quickly, well, you better have time to do it a second time, right? So someone was trying to do it quickly the first time, and now days later, they're still trying to fix the issue. It would have been better if they just did it right the first time. And then another thing that you can think about if you're in the cybersecurity audit and compliance field, and let's say you're interviewing right now, what are the opportunities for you, right? You can showcase your knowledge in an interview. If they ask you about cybersecurity or change management, you can showcase your knowledge and talk about this control that they missed. Again, the control is around change management controls, making sure there's adequate testing, validation, and approval. So you can use this as a way to, just chip it in your interview and talk about the fact that you understand the importance of those controls, and so that you can avoid issues like the one that happened at Crowdstrike. So they may laugh, but at least they'll understand that you understand exactly what happened there. So it's a way for you to kind of just leverage the information to help yourself during interviews. So again, this was something that was just like, how did it happen at a company such as CrowdStrike? CrowdStrike is serving multi-billion-dollar companies. You don't make this kind of rookie mistake where you push an update that was not properly tested and validated. The impact was just not good. And that's not what we want to see. So for you going into cybersecurity, you want to know that these things that you learn that may seem theoretical at times, they're real, right? Maybe you're tired of testing changes all the time because you think, what you're doing works. The day it doesn't work is the day it doesn't work, and it's going to have real issues. So always think about the importance of the work that you do in this field. And I'll say for cybersecurity audit and compliance professionals, at least those at CrowdStrike, or those that will be hired at CrowdStrike, one of the areas that they will need to review definitely is the change management process, because somebody will need to go in there to find out what happened, right? And how can we fix it and address it so that it doesn't happen in the future. So I just wanted to share that with you guys today, since you guys are on a call with me and I felt like recording a video on it. So if you guys have any questions, let me know about that. But again, It just shows the importance of why cybersecurity is important and why if they have, let me say, if they have systemic problems with their change management process, meaning this is not just a one-off and they've just been lucky this whole time, then the audit and compliance folks at CrowdStrike really have a lot of work to do, because it means that they really need to go in there and find out why haven't these types of issues been identified. But again, this might be a one-off issue that just happened just because, and in that case, they need to make sure that they address it and make sure it doesn't happen again. All right. So did you guys find that helpful in better understanding what happened with CrowdStrike? If you did, let me know. So again, thank you for watching this. I just wanted to provide some insights there. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right. So someone said absolutely understandable. Perfect. That is good, good, good. So Micah said on the CrowdStrike issue, if there's a scheduled patch management on behalf of a third-party end users, and in view of the process required for change management approval, what's the best way to avert this issue considering meeting timelines? So I think what you're asking is, if you have a deadline to meet, right, what can you do knowing that change management can take time? Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to bake the time for testing into your process. You cannot say because you're trying to meet SLA, you avoid testing. Because what's going to happen is you're going to break the system and then the SLA is not going to matter. Right? Do you guys get that? So you don't want to say because it's going to take too much time, you don't test. Now you break something and days later you guys are still trying to fix it. No. Make sure that in your SLAs, you've already considered the time to follow the right change management process. Okay. And then anything, service level agreement. Sorry, Zach, service level agreement. And the other thing to remember is in this particular case, it's not just patch management, because this is endpoint security. So this is one where the customers are not necessarily testing because they're trusting CrowdStrike to provide the best and latest updates, because they want like what we call a 0-day protection. They want immediate protection, right? So that's what makes this one a little bit unique. So CrowdStrike, knowing that, should have done better. That's just the truth. CrowdStrike should have done better in this situation because they know that customers are relying on them to provide error-proof updates. Okay? All right? Exactly. Daniel said the impact from the aftermath is greater. It is so not worth it. Okay? Got it. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.